Hi, this is Fred with MyTraderCards, and this is part one of our Photographer Tips series. In this video, we're going to cover a number of composition ideas, some suggestions for when you're at the field, and finally, a couple of thoughts on what I'll call Trader Card project etiquette. Okay, let's get started with the composition ideas. There are 6 tips that I want to share with you that will help make your photos look really great in the Trader Cards. First, as a general rule for Trader Cards, each photo you should submit should have one clear subject. You'll probably end up with a bunch of great photos with multiple players on them. Here are a couple of examples. These are really nice photos, but they don't really work that well for Trader Cards. Individual shots like this one tend to work a little bit better. Now, for every rule in photography, there are ways to break the rule and still get great results. For example, something like this works great as a team photo. This team named themselves Champions. So for this one, I might create a Team Champions tag when I upload the photo. The second tip is to think about the card templates when you're composing your shot. MyTraderCards has about 20 different card templates. Here are a few examples. You'll notice that some of the cards, like the 3 on the top row, have a vertical picture window, and some, like the 3 on the bottom row, have a horizontal picture window. This makes a difference when we make the card because the photo has to fill up the full window. Let's illustrate this with an example. Take this photo. Nice action shot, great background, very sharp. But notice that it's cropped tightly on the top and also on the left and bottom sides. Let's look at what happens when we put it into 4 of our horizontal templates. By making the photo width fit into these templates, some interesting things happen. In the 2 templates on the left side, we end up cropping off the player's feet. In the template on the upper right hand, his feet are covered by the graphics. So the only template that really works here is the one on the lower right-hand side. So what can we do to make our shots more usable in more templates? Well, think about leaving some negative space around the subject. Now, what do I mean by negative space? Try to pull back from the subject enough so that you leave some space between them and the edge of the frame. There's no need to crop your photos before submitting them. We take care of the scaling and cropping when we make the cards. You can see that this opens up more options for using the same set of templates. Moving on to tip number 3. It's all about the faces. Every season I get lots of photos like these. Photos where the player's back is turned or their face is partially covered. You know what the players really want is to see their face on TV or on the front of a Wheaties box or on a trader card. Shots where we can clearly see the player's face make the best cards, especially if we can capture some emotion. Of course, as we said earlier, every photography rule can be broken. Take this shot, for example. It's nicely composed, and the whole frame helps to tell the story. Runner on first, Aaron Woodruff steps to the plate, the pitch is delivered, and... okay, you get the idea. The rule can be broken with good results, but for the most part, remember, it's all about the faces. Okay, tip number 4. Try not to chop off limbs. Sometimes we crop photos for an artistic effect, but for trader cards, the crops that work best are either full body shots from the waist up or headshots. So most of the photos I see where a limb or appendage is out of the frame are very difficult to use for cards. So as a general rule, don't chop off any limbs. That brings us to tip number 5, which is possibly the most important of them all. Pay attention to what's in the background. The best trader card photos isolate and draw attention to your subject. A busy or cluttered background really detracts from the player. So let's talk about these photos. First, in the upper left-hand corner, we have some very nice bright orange cones. Tiger Little League folks, you'll recognize these as the Templeton AAA outfield. Please be aware of these cones and try and keep them out of your picture frame. They're just killers because your eye is really drawn to that bright color. In the lower right-hand image, we have a great action shot. The cars, though, take us away from the softball story and draw the eye away from our pitcher. Try to change your position so you have a simpler background behind your subject. Another common problem is around home plate, where we get the fans or the dugout or a garbage can or porta potty right behind our batters. We can see this in the upper right-hand and lower left-hand photos. So how do we deal with this? Well, the farther away from the batter you are, the more they will appear compressed together with the background in your image. If you can't change your position to get a more pleasant background, try moving closer to the batter and zooming in on them. This will separate them a little from the background. I'll talk more about this in part 2 of the Photographer Tips series where we cover depth of field. Now here are a few examples where the photographer has done a good job managing the background. An easy approach for posed shots like the upper left-hand image is to shoot down towards the ground. Or another alternative that I use a lot is to crouch down and shoot up, as we can see in the bottom 3 images. This can give you a nice sky or tree background. It also has the effect of making the subject look larger, and it's sometimes called the hero pose because it makes your subject appear larger than in real life, and it's a great technique for trader cards. The top middle photo is another technique I like a lot. Here the camera is closer to the subject than the subject is to the background, and I'm using a wide open aperture. This dissolves the background and really separates the subject. We'll cover this more in part 2 of this series. So if you only take one thing away from this video, paying attention to the background would be a really good one. That brings us to the final composition tip. Make the athlete look good. This is really the core of what we're trying to achieve here. Baseball and softball are difficult sports, and our kids will experience many small failures this season. Things like swinging and missing, fouling off a pitch, muffing a ground ball, and so on. And you'll capture a bunch of these small failures in your photos. That's just part of the process. But these photos don't make good trader cards and shouldn't be submitted. What we're trying to do is capture them in an athletic moment, one where they're engaged, in motion, or poised to be in motion, or just having a great time. These will turn out to be the best trader cards and will make great memories for years to come. So think about making your athlete look good. Okay, now let's change gears and talk about strategies we can use at the field. First, whenever I'm shooting a game, I always start by introducing myself to the umpires and the coaches and explaining what I'm doing. Most umpires at the Little League level will be okay with you on the field if you stay out of the way. More on that in a minute. It's important that you keep a low profile and not draw attention to yourself when you're on the field. Think of yourself as a professional sports photographer. It's not appropriate for you to cheer or try to coach up the players, so be respectful and impartial at all times. Finally, be safe. You're not insured by MyTraderCards or Little League, so put yourself in situations where you're not going to be in danger of being hit by a ball or player. Now let's talk about positioning. Between inning warm-ups are a great time to capture action shots. From about midway down the first base line, you'll have a great angle for the infielders, left-handed pitchers, and right-handed catchers, and for the coming down throw. From the midway down the third base line, you'll have a great angle for right-handed pitchers, left-handed catchers, and the first baseman. Try changing your position from inning to inning. This will give your photos more variety. Again, it's important that the umpires and coaches know what you're doing. Talking to them ahead of time when they're not busy can earn you access to the field. Tiger Little League folks, make sure to have your TCP press pass with you. During the game, it's important that you're out of the way of the action. It's never appropriate to be in fair territory, and you want to be far enough away from home plate that you're not getting sprayed with foul balls. I like to take a position behind the base coach on either side of the field, positions 1 and 2 in the diagram. In position 1, you'll have a great angle for base runners coming to first, and in position 2, you'll have a great angle for base runners coming from second to third. Depending on the field, you can sometimes get great shots looking through the chain link from positions 3 or 4. This is especially interesting with a runner on third, where position 4 gives you a great angle for plays at the plate. To shoot through the chain link, I support the end of my lens with my left hand, using that hand to position the lens so the chain link is out of the frame and my lens isn't making contact with the fence. This works best with a zoom lens. That brings us to Trader Card project etiquette. These are small but important things to help make this a great experience. First, always defer to umpires and coaches. Consider yourself as a guest on the field and try and stay out of the way. If they ask you to move or leave the field, please do so. Second, all of the kids matter, so try to treat all of them equally. You'll find that some kids are more photogenic or more athletic than others, and you'll end up with a lot more shots of them. Other kids may get less playing time or be absent the weekend you're shooting, and you'll have a lot less shots of them. Try to even it out over the course of the season so all of the kids end up with a similar number of trader cards at the end. And finally, please be aware that at the Trader Card Project, all of your images and cards are processed by real humans. The process isn't entirely automated, so please be kind to our humans. This means sort your photos and don't upload everything that you shoot. Use the composition tips from earlier in the video as guidelines for what shouldn't be submitted. Also, if you have many shots that are nearly the same, please pick only 1 or 2 of them to upload. We don't need 12 cards that look almost exactly the same. And finally, please delete photos that are out of focus. They just don't work for trader cards. Take a moment and make sure the content you're uploading is sharp. These things will save us a lot of time, and our humans will really appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video, and have fun out there.